Picture a mountain man in a Rocky Mountain winter, 5 feet of snow, 40 below zero, wind like a wolf. Now picture his home. What do you see? A log cabin with a roaring fireplace, right? It's a classic image. And it's almost entirely wrong. Most mountain men never built log cabins. They didn't have fireplaces. A fireplace is permanent, heavy, complex. For a man constantly on the move, a permanent home was a liability. So how did they survive month-long blizzards without the one thing we consider essential? The answer is a masterclass in forgotten knowledge, a system lighter, more efficient, more intelligent than our modern methods, learned from Native American tribes who thrived in these mountains for thousands of years. It proves the most powerful solutions are often the most simple, the most elegant, and the most misunderstood. My name is Sam, and this is Wild America. Part 1. The Myth of the Winter Cabin. Before we can understand how mountain men stayed warm, we have to unlearn the myth of the winter cabin. The image of the solitary trapper holed up in his cozy log home is a powerful one. It's been reinforced by 1,000 paintings, 1,000 movies, 1,000 stories. But it's a fantasy, a product of a later, more settled time. The fur trade era, from the 1820s to the 1840s, was an era of movement. A trapper's life was a nomadic one. He followed the seasons, he followed the game, he followed the beaver, and his shelter had to be as mobile as he was. The reality was harsh and unforgiving. When winter came to the Rocky Mountains, the beaver ponds froze solid. Trapping became impossible. Travel became deadly. Game scattered or went into hiding. The fur brigades, those loose confederations of trappers and hunters, had to find a place to hole up, as they called it. They needed a location with plentiful game, abundant firewood, easy access to water, and shelter from the killing wind. And they needed to be able to set up camp quickly, because the weather could turn in an instant. The true winter home of the mountain man was not a cabin, but a lodge, a teepee, a conical tent made of dressed buffalo skins and slender poles. It was a design that had been perfected over centuries by the nomadic tribes of the Great Plains. And it was a masterpiece of portable architecture. A single lodge could be set up or taken down in a matter of minutes. It was light enough to be transported by a few horses. And it was, in many ways, a far more effective winter shelter than a drafty, inefficient log cabin. The typical winter camp was a small village of these lodges. Warren Ferris, a trapper working for the Hudson's Bay Company, described his winter encampment of 1834 to 35. 8 leather lodges and 2 constructed of poles covered with cane grass. 22 men, 9 women, 20 children. 10 distinct dialects spoken. A little community sheltered in a grove of aspen trees, completely protected from the wind. This was not the solitary existence of the Hollywood trapper. This was a communal survival strategy, a recognition that in the face of a Rocky Mountain winter, you needed more than just a roof over your head. You needed a tribe. The key to the lodge's success was its shape. The conical design shed wind and snow with incredible efficiency. The overlapping skins created a waterproof and windproof barrier. And the open top, with its adjustable smoke flaps, created a natural ventilation system that drew smoke out and fresh air in. The lodge was also partially transparent. When the wings at the top were closed, they admitted enough light to read the smallest print. It was a dwelling that was in harmony with its environment, not in opposition to it. But the real genius of the lodge was in how it was heated, and it was a system that was the polar opposite of a modern fireplace. Part 2. The Living Fire. A modern fireplace is a paradox. It's a massive, inefficient beast that sucks more heat out of a room than it puts in. The roaring fire you see is mostly for show. The vast majority of the heat goes straight up the chimney, pulling the warm air of the room along with it. It's a system designed for aesthetics, not for survival. A traditional fireplace can actually make a room colder, as it creates a powerful draft that pulls heated air out of the living space and replaces it with cold air sucked in through every crack and crevice. The mountain man's fire was the opposite. It was a small, controlled, and incredibly efficient heat source placed directly in the center of the lodge. There was no chimney, no stone hearth, no barrier between the man and the flame. The fire was a living presence in the room, a member of the mess. As the trapper Warren Ferris wrote in the 1830s, one would scarcely think it possible for 7 or 8 persons to pass a long winter agreeably in a circular room 10 feet in diameter with a fire in the center. But, he exclaimed, indeed they are as comfortable as they could wish to be. The fire pit itself was simple, a small circle of earth in the exact center of the lodge. No stones, no elaborate construction, just bare ground. The simplicity was intentional. A stone hearth would absorb heat and radiate it slowly, which is useful in a permanent structure. But in a portable lodge, you wanted the heat immediately, and you wanted to be able to pack up and move at a moment's notice. The fire was built small and hot, not large and wasteful. The fuel for this fire was carefully chosen. The preferred wood was dry aspen. Aspen wood burns hot and clean, with very little smoke. This was crucial in a room with no chimney. The small amount of smoke that was produced rose in a straight column and exited through the smoke hole at the top of the lodge. The brilliant light of the aspen fire also eliminated the need for candles, another precious and often unavailable resource. Osborne Russell, trapping with Jim Bridger's brigade in the winter of 1836-37, described how a good fire of dry aspen wood, which burns clear without smoke, affording a brilliant light, obviates the necessity of using candles. The smoke hole at the top of the lodge was a marvel of engineering. It was not just a hole. It was a controllable vent with 2 adjustable flaps that could be opened or closed depending on the wind and the weather. On a calm day, the flaps could be opened wide, allowing maximum ventilation. On a windy day, they could be adjusted to prevent downdrafts and to direct the smoke out efficiently. This system created a natural chimney effect, drawing the smoke up and out, while allowing fresh air to enter from the bottom of the lodge. This central fire system was a masterpiece of thermal dynamics. The radiant heat from the fire warmed the occupants of the lodge directly. There was no wasted heat escaping up a chimney. Every calorie of energy released by the burning wood went into warming the men who sat around it. The rising column of warm air created a gentle convection current, circulating warmth throughout the small space. The lodge itself, made of thick insulating buffalo hides, trapped the heat, creating a microclimate that was often 20 or 30 degrees warmer than the outside air. It was a system that was simple, elegant, and perfectly adapted to the realities of a life on the move. Comment "living fire" if you think this is a smarter way to heat a small space. But here's the problem nobody talks about. The lodge and the fire were only the outer layer of the system. They could keep the wind and the worst of the cold at bay, but they couldn't defeat the deadliest enemy of all, the frozen ground. The earth itself is a massive heat sink. It will suck the warmth out of your body with ruthless efficiency. And no matter how hot your fire burns, if you are sleeping on the frozen ground, you will die. The real secret to the mountain man's survival was not in the air, but under his feet. Part 3. The Insulating Earth. The mountain man understood a principle that we have almost completely forgotten. You don't just heat the air, you have to insulate yourself from the ground. His solution was a multi-layered system of natural insulation that was as simple as it was effective. The floor of the lodge was not bare earth. It was covered with a thick layer of reeds or cane grass harvested from the riverbanks. Warren Ferris described how the bottoms of the lodges were covered with reeds upon which our blankets and robes were spread. This layer of hollow-stemmed vegetation trapped air, creating a natural and surprisingly effective insulating barrier. The cane grass, which grew 8 to 10 feet high along the rivers, was cut and laid in thick mats. The hollow stems acted like thousands of tiny air pockets, preventing the cold from the frozen ground from seeping up into the living space. On top of this, the trappers laid their bedding, a thick layer of buffalo robes. A buffalo robe is one of the most effective natural insulators on the planet. The dense, hollow hairs of the buffalo's winter coat are designed to trap air and hold in body heat. A single robe could keep a man warm in sub-zero temperatures. A thick layer of them, spread across the floor of the lodge, created a warm, comfortable, and deeply insulated living space. The trappers also placed their baggage around the bottom of the lodge, on the inside, to further exclude the cold from beneath. The arrangement of the lodge was carefully thought out. Each man had his own assigned place. They sat cross-legged, like Turks, on their beds, each one employed in his own task, cleaning guns, repairing moccasins, smoking, lolling at ease on their elbows. The fire was in the center, equidistant from everyone. It was a democratic arrangement, a circle of equals, all sharing the same warmth, all contributing to the same survival. But the most important source of heat in the lodge was not the fire. It was the men themselves. A human body at rest generates about 100 watts of heat. 8 men crowded into a small 10-foot lodge generated a significant amount of warmth. This social warmth was a crucial part of the survival equation. The trappers slept close together, sharing body heat, their bodies wrapped in a cocoon of buffalo robes. As Osborne Russell described it, they were snugly arranged in our skin lodge. It was a communal system of survival, a system that recognized that in the face of the overwhelming power of a Rocky Mountain winter, the only way to survive was to rely on each other. This principle of social warmth was not unique to the mountain men. It was a universal survival strategy used by cultures all over the world. The Inuit of the Arctic, the nomadic tribes of the Siberian tundra, the shepherds of the high Andes. They all understood that in the coldest environments, the most reliable source of heat is not fire, but the human body. They created a bubble of warmth, a small island of life in a vast and frozen wilderness, not with a massive roaring fire, but with the simple, shared heat of their own bodies. Comment: social warmth if you understand that people are a source of heat, not just consumers of it. Part 4. The Walking Furnace. The final piece of the puzzle was the mountain man himself. He was a walking furnace, a biological machine that was perfectly adapted to generating and conserving heat. His diet, his clothing, and his metabolism were all finely tuned to the demands of a life in the cold. The diet of a mountain man was almost entirely meat: venison, buffalo, elk, bighorn sheep. It was a diet that was incredibly high in protein and fat, and it was a diet that was perfectly suited to a cold environment. The process of digesting protein, known as diet-induced thermogenesis, actually generates heat. The mountain man was literally fueling his internal furnace with every bite of roasted venison. The massive amounts of animal fat he consumed also provided a slow-burning source of energy, a reserve of fuel that could keep his body warm through the long, cold nights. The winter camp was a place of abundance. Hunters made daily excursions into the mountains and returned with the flesh of several black-tailed deer. Warren Ferris described how they frequently killed 7 or 8 individually in the course of a day, and consequently their encampment was soon decorated with several thousand pounds of venison. This was not rationing. This was feasting. The trappers roasted choice cuts over the fire: side ribs, shoulders, heads, rump cuts. The hissing roasts provided not just calories, but a constant source of warmth from the inside out. His clothing was a masterpiece of natural engineering. He wore multiple layers of buckskin, a material that is both tough and surprisingly warm. Over this, he wore a buffalo robe, a garment that was both a coat and a blanket. Buffalo robes served as blankets and heavy coats during cold winter weather. His moccasins were lined with fur, and his hat, often made of beaver or otter, had ear flaps that could be pulled down to protect his face from the biting wind. It was a system of clothing that was designed not just to keep the cold out, but to trap the body's own heat in. It was a personal, portable shelter, a cocoon of warmth that he carried with him wherever he went. The buffalo robe deserves special mention. It was the single most important piece of winter gear a mountain man owned. The winter coat of a buffalo is a marvel of natural insulation. The long, shaggy outer hairs shed water and snow. The dense, woolly undercoat traps air and holds in heat. A buffalo robe could weigh 20 pounds or more, but it was worth its weight in gold. It was a blanket, a coat, a ground cloth, and a lifesaver. A man wrapped in a buffalo robe could sleep comfortably in temperatures that would kill an unprotected man in minutes. And finally, there was the man himself. The mountain man was a product of his environment. He was lean, tough, and acclimatized to the cold. His body had learned to conserve heat, to constrict the blood vessels in his extremities, to shunt warm blood to his core. He was a man who was comfortable with being cold. He understood that shivering was not a sign of weakness, but a sign that his body was working to keep him alive. He was a man who had stripped away every ounce of unnecessary fat, every ounce of unnecessary comfort, and had been left with a lean, efficient, and incredibly resilient survival machine. But he was not a solitary machine. He was part of a community. The long winter evenings were passed away by collecting in some of the most spacious lodges and entering into debates, arguments, or spinning long yarns until midnight. Osborne Russell called it the Rocky Mountain College. It was a place of learning, of storytelling, of shared knowledge. It was a recognition that survival was not just a physical challenge, but a mental and social one. The warmth of human connection was as important as the warmth of the fire. Comment, "Walking furnace," if you are impressed by the human body's ability to adapt to extreme cold. Conclusion, the wisdom of the lodge, Sun Tzu Su. So how did the mountain men stay warm in deadly winters without fireplaces? They did it by rejecting the very idea of a fireplace. They did it by embracing a system that was lighter, more mobile, and more intelligent. They did it by understanding that warmth is not a thing you create, but a thing you conserve. They did it by learning from the masters, the Native American tribes who had unlocked the secrets of the winter wilderness centuries before. The buffalo hide lodge, the central fire, the insulated floor, the high-protein diet, the layered clothing, the shared body heat. It was a system of interlocking parts, a web of subtle strategies that was far more resilient than any single brute force solution. It was a system that was in harmony with the environment, not in opposition to it. It was a system that recognized that the greatest source of warmth in the wilderness is not a roaring fire, but the quiet, steady heat of the human body and the shared warmth of human community. This knowledge has been almost entirely lost. We have replaced the elegant simplicity of the lodge with the brute force of modern heating. We have replaced the communal warmth of shared survival with the isolated comfort of individual homes. We have replaced the deep understanding of how to live in the cold with a dependence on technology that fails the moment the power goes out. And in doing so, we have lost something essential. We have lost the knowledge that our ancestors carried in their bones, the knowledge that allowed them to thrive in the harshest environments on Earth. But it's not too late to relearn these lessons. The principles that kept the mountain men alive are still valid today. The understanding that warmth comes from multiple sources, not just one. The recognition that community is a survival tool, not just a social nicety. The knowledge that the human body is an incredibly efficient heating machine if you know how to fuel it and protect it. These are lessons that can save your life in a survival situation. And they are lessons that can make you more resilient, more self-sufficient, and more connected to the natural world, even in your everyday life. The next time you see a picture of a log cabin with a smoking chimney, remember the mountain man in his smoky, fire-lit lodge. Remember the man who understood that a home is not a place, but a state of being. And remember that the most powerful survival tools are not the ones we build, but the ones we learn. The ones that are passed down from generation to generation, a legacy of hard-won knowledge, a testament to the enduring power of human ingenuity in the face of the wild. For more on the forgotten knowledge of the American frontier, check out our video on what mountain men understood about log cabins that we forgot. And if you want to learn about another essential survival tool that modern versions can't match, watch our video on why trapper knives lasted lifetimes while yours break in months. My name is Sam, and this is Wild America.